then. Uh, Thank you so much for joining in, everyone. My name is Sharif Kamar, and I am working as a fellow at TERI's Center for Sustainable Mobility. The past year and a half has been quite tough for everyone, and it incidentally coincides with the current study as well. And so TERI offers deep condolences to those who have lost family members, friends, colleagues due to COVID. We also like to thank all the people and participants who have not joined here at this event, but have been throughout there and supporting us in this study. Quickly about the study, sir, before we get into the inaugural session. The aim of the study is to promote and demonstrate innovative ways to improve the sustainability of urban freight, transport, and logistics in India through partnerships and experience sharing. This program aims to help Indian cities in accelerating progress towards making urban freight cleaner and more efficient, measured in terms of fuel use, CO2 emissions, air pollution, and other core benefits like traffic, reduced traffic congestion, freight delivery times reduction, etc. There are three key components under this initiative. One is the partnership with cities. Second is knowledge management and capacity building, and pilot deployment of clean fuel technologies. With these words, I would like to just run through the agenda for today's event. We have an inaugural session immediately after this. Then we have a launch of the website by Mr. Pavan Agarwal, sir, and followed by a presentation on the study, which will capture the objectives, activities, vision, and the next steps. A roundtable discussion featuring eminent speakers from the industry, think tank, and government agency. Before I hand over to Sanjay sir, a quick introduction to all the speakers of the inaugural session. First of all, Sanjay sir is Senior Director at Sustainable Habitat Division with TERI and also the Chief Executive Officer of Griha Council, the Green Rating for Integrated Habitat Assessment. Prior to joining TERI, he worked with Bureau of Energy Efficiency and headed the vertical on building energy efficiency. We also have the privilege of Mr. Shipakas. Sir is a distinguished fellow in TERI, as well as a retired member traffic and had a distinguished service at Ministry of Railways. We also have Mr. Hisham Mondol from Environmental Defense Fund. In the past, he was associated with Hindustan Unilever, WorldTel, Accenture, Infosys, and Indian government's initiative on National AIDS Control Organization in different capacities. We also have Mr. Pavan Agarwal, sir. We are privileged to have you, sir. We understand that you have a long day ahead, where a lot of initiatives, almost dozen initiatives of Logistics Division will be showcased to the Minister. And we congratulate on behalf of TERI, sir, on all the initiatives. Sir has been with the Ministry of Commerce and Industry and held several key positions in different government sector. So over to you, sir. Sanjay sir, for your welcome remarks.
Thank you very much, Sharif. Once again, a very warm welcome to Mr. Pavan Agarwal, Special Secretary in the Ministry of Commerce and Industries, Mr. Hisham Mandol, who's the Chief Advisor in EDF in India, our distinguished fellow Shri Prakash sir, for being here today on this, I think, a very, very important initiative which has been made possible both by EDF and the Ministry of Commerce and Industry to be, providing this privilege to TERI, if I may say. And as I said, that we are launching this Sustainable Urban Freight Coalition on a very important day, which marks the 6th anniversary of the Smart Cities Mission. And I'm sure that, when we are discussing this initiative, it is all about bringing in efficiency, emission reduction, and of course, cost. When we talk of efficiency, it's both in terms of cost as well as in fuel efficiencies on freight. And largely in the past, I think, if you look at the focus that has been, it has largely been on the passenger, transport. And freight has never got the focus that it should have. But I think It should have been the other way around, because freight, normally the transportation of freight through cities really causes or adds to a lot of pollution and other emissions. And we are all, I think we see it in Delhi, we see it especially during the winter months, how it really increases. And one of the things that these are all knee-jerk actions which are taken, that we clamp down on freight movement and all of those things are done. So I think that we will be able to, through this study and bringing in all the stakeholders together, I think the idea is to work closely and see that where is it that, impacts could be evaluated, and where is it that we need to really put the focus on. So as Sharif mentioned, today we are very deeply honored by Mr. Pawan Kumar Agarwal's presence here, who would be formally launching this website, and which aims to bring in all the stakeholders. Sir, I have always been of this opinion, and since I also am the CEO of the GRIA Council, we have a tagline there which says that what gets measured gets managed, and that's very important. That this holds true across everything that we do. So once you are able to measure, then only would something be possible to manage. So I hope that the information that is related to the urban freight and the stakeholders and the sector, they all benefit out of this initiative. I think this initiative is not only going to be limited to just the government sector, but I think the private sector, the transport organizers, the people who really are at the helm of affairs, I think all of those people need to come together. And we hope that, Sharif, once this is launched, I think it's important to see how, what is the kind of hit that this website gets, how many people visit it. And then eventually, we must do also an impact analysis as to what really has emerged out of it, and has it been able to contribute, or are there any course corrections that are required, so that we are able to kind of fix those as we move along. So without further ado, I formally once again thank you all for your support, for being here with us today. And as I said, this is going to be discussed by a very eminent panel later on after the inaugural. And and all good wishes, and thank you very much to my own colleagues in TERI to have worked hard and put this together. Thank you very much, Sharif.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I welcome Mr. Shivprakash for setting the context. So over to you.
Thank you, Sharif. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Sharif, and Mr. Pawan Agarwal, Special Secretary, Logistics Division, Ministry of Commerce. I have been hearing about him very good words, and during his brief tenure, he has brought a new life to the logistic divisions, because I have two old colleagues who are working with him. So that is why I keep on hearing about him. And of course, this TERI has also now association with the logistics division, very close association rather. And Mr. Hisham Mundal, I have been introduced to you yesterday only, and I'm looking forward to a virtual meeting with you this week, hopefully on Tuesday next week. And Mr. Partho Basu, who has been a very close friend of mine for almost 15 years, if I am not wrong. So I know him for so long. So today is a great day. Great day, not in the sense that we are launching the website and also the charter on the urban freight pollution, but it is some kind of a very important milestone where we have reached. Of our last 3 years, TERI has been working in urban freight. And we started working in 3 cities, and these very small steps, we were not very sure, because it's the first time that we were venturing in that area. Not very sure that whether what we are looking into and all this, because there was not much information available. Then we studied Delhi, Bangalore, and Surat, and realized that a lot of work can be done towards the electrification of small vehicles, the three-wheelers and four-wheelers, which are plying almost 24 hours in the cities, because the logistics are becoming very, very important in the cities now. And then bigger vehicles cannot enter during the daytime. And their population is also growing. And not only that, they are the great carbon emitter, they're also polluter, air polluter. So this, we started looking into that into detail, and then the EDF gave us not only the financial resources but also the intellectual inputs, to try it out in a city, Surat, and very enthusiastically the city government and the state government supported this program, and we are rather very confident that very soon the more and more electric vehicles. In fact, they already have got the electric vehicles, but more electric vehicles would be uh, roaming around in the city, the carrying the traffic not only of the municipal waste, etc., but also the raw materials and the intermediate materials of the textile industry, and where a large number of small vehicles are employed. Now, this we are also would be starting with this program in Bangalore, because Terry believes that not only in the finding out the solutions but also implementing it, and then see that whether what kind of the changes are required in our thinking, and then closely working with the policy makers, implementers in the government, and seeing that some fruitful and results come out of our the attempt. Now this uh, seeing a larger picture in the transport sector, it is increasingly becoming very clear that we cannot achieve the zero emission uh, even by 2050. And this is all only because of this freight sector, the heavy vehicles which are being employed. And India is, of course, in a better position that we have a vibrant railway system where the government has resolved that 45% of the traffic should move by rail. So that is one good attempt for which investments are being made in a big way in railways for capacity enhancement. But apart from that, heavy trucks are not going away. And unless we get a suitable technology for electrifying the heavy trucks or finding out some alternative energy, it is very difficult to introduce the low carbon technologies or the zero carbon emission even by 2050. So that is why it is becoming very important. Today I'm not talking about passenger, but it's not that it is not important. In fact, we have worked very closely with other research organizations on the electrification of the passenger vehicles also for 4 years in Bangalore. And we see a lot of possibilities there in electric autos as well as the e-rickshaws. Now, coming back to the, if in this is such a situation where logistics is becoming very important and transport is a very important aspect of the logistics, finding out solutions which are introduction of the low carbon technologies. And basically, as I see that only these technological advancements only can bring a lot of changes, that, and I'm sure that a lot of new technologies would be coming in. And then second aspect is that the not only technology is important, but awareness also, that making aware the stakeholders, the owners, the industry to own that technology. And finally, the government policymakers to that who are regulating this, and they are, and also enabling these technologies to get into practice. So these are things are important, and we have been playing a, if not very important role, at least very small role, that because there is a large number of research organizations, think tanks are involved, and we believe in collaborative research. So that is, we don't have any competition with any of the organizations. In fact, we keep on having regular sessions with them, and this collaborating with each other. Now this we have a we see that there is a great future for great work for us, and in fact today we are launching the Urban Freight Coalition Charter as well as the website, but it is only a part of the larger exercise. We are already working on the Sustainable Transport Forum, and talking not only to government but also the other organizations who are involved in the transport research as well as the funding agencies. So this the EDF, the Shakti Energy Foundation, uh, who have been helping us a lot in that, and we are grateful for that. And of course, the government would be the major partners, because we feel that not only the central government, we have to carry this message, collaborate very closely with the state governments, because that there where is the real action is there, particularly in the urban freight transportation. And the Sustainable Transport Forum, and also we are working on a charter on the sustainable transportation, which we intend to launch in COP26 in Glasgow in next November. So these are with these words, that I again welcome to all of our guests today. And today, on the day of satisfaction for us, that we have reached a milestone, and wishing, rather not only commending my team, in fact, they who have done the good work despite all the problems which we have today in this pandemic, but they have delivered it, though a bit late, but we promise that we will keep on working on these issues and finding on the solutions to the satisfaction of the city governments, the central government, and the state governments, as well as the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. I now invite Mr. Hesham Mandal.
Hi, good morning to everyone in the audience. Good morning, Mr. Agarwal, for being here on what is clearly a busy day, but I dare say a good busy day. So thank you for making the time. Mr. Sri Prakash, thank you for your wisdom and perspective. Mr. Seth, thank you for giving us the strategic context, and thank you to everyone else who are friends and partners of ours at TERI. I wanted to start off outside of freight and consider the broader issue of India's development. We at EDF are trying to contribute towards an Indian pathway of shared, healthy, low-carbon prosperity. How is this relevant to today's session and this initiative? Well, for us as a nation to move forward, our economic engine needs movement of goods to grow exponentially for many years to come. What we need is cheaper, faster, and better freight that creates jobs and builds economic value. What we do not need is a linear growth in emissions. Quite frankly, our poor, our health infrastructure, and our food systems will not be able to absorb the shocks of this. Now, this coalition seeks to catalyze making India's freight sector more sustainable, and I want to thank and congratulate TERI on all of the work so far, and preemptively congratulate and thank you for the work that you will be doing going forward. And I share, Sri Prakash, your point about the work being done under difficult circumstances. I wanted to share one single perspective in my talk today. The conventional narrative is that we need to improve the efficiency of our freight sector and that many are working towards it, but not everyone is adequately considering the sustainability dimensions. I would ask you to consider a different framing. It should not be just about making freight cheaper and greener. It has to be about how greening freight makes it cheaper and better. And there's a subtle difference, but in my view, there is a big difference. Governments will accept recommendations and formulate policies accordingly. Corporates will make investment and purchasing decisions. The freight sector will transform itself if we are able to establish the science and logistics of this equation. And let's look at the numbers. India's logistical costs are about 13% of GDP. Compared to other advanced countries, is around less than 10%. A recent economic survey identified potential to reduce logistic costs by 10%. The draft logistics policy targets reducing logistic costs to 10% of GDP and creating 1 to 1.45 crore jobs in this sector. This isn't just anymore about transport. This is about job creation. This is about export promotion. This is about poverty alleviation. This is about lifting people into the middle classes. This is about creating shareholder value. And so therefore, as a coalition and as a community, my recommendation is that our North Star should be, how do we look at catalyzing this reduction in costs? How do we contribute to increasing these jobs through our sustainability agenda, not as a byproduct or as an add-on, but as an integral driver to this? That was the one point I wanted to make in terms of the framing. Thank you so much for all of your contributions towards a shared, healthy, low carbon prosperity. It'll be an Indian pathway for 140 crore Indians, but it is also very likely to be a pathway for hundreds of crores in many countries around the world. Thank you once again and congratulations.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hisham. Now we have the speech and keynote address by Agarwal sir. But before he begins, I would also request my IT team to share the screen so that we formally launch the website through on behalf of sir as well. So, sir, over to you.
So, is it launched?
Sir, requesting you to launch it, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
These are wonderful ways of launching in the new environment. Thank you very much, Terry, colleagues friends from Terry, and Mr. Seth, Mr. Sri Prakash, Mr. Hisham. I have really enjoyed listening to all three of you. We have been engaged with Terry for some time now, in particular with Sharif, but I was not aware of your engagement with the urban freight issues. And when I received this email about launch event, so I was pleasantly surprised. You must have seen a very quick response from me, on that mail, because this is something that has been on my mind in person over the last 1 year. As you know, that logistics division, which was established, about now 4 years ago. So we are still figuring out what can we do, because this is a space which has many players already, 4 transport ministries, and in terms of user ministries, coal, fertilizer, they handle their own logistics. And there is pretty little that a logistics division can add value to the work that they do. So over the past 1 year, we have been, and I think since even my predecessors were trying to figure out that what logistics division can actually deliver value in terms of bringing them all together, or and we realized that of several things, and when we put our heads onto it, we realized there are very many things that can be done. And in fact, we have identified 75 of them, not 1, 2, 75 of those activities. And we, even as the policy is going through the approval processes, we have started action or activities in many of those areas. Just 1 minute, let me switch it off. So we have started activities in several of them, and of several of them, urban freight issues is one of the key areas of our focus, and which I feel, when we're looking at what areas we can work on, we were looking obviously for gaps where no ministry is perhaps working, or overlaps where too many people are working, and perhaps there is need for alignment of all of them. And obviously, all our work has to be focused around multimodality. And it has to be more on not creating infrastructure, but more optimal use of infrastructure. And as Mr. Hisham pointed out, moving towards the green logistics space, resilience in logistics. So these were the concerns that we are trying to address through the logistics policy and through various activities that the logistics division could steer moving forward. And of all of them, I find that urban freight is an area of not only huge concern, but also an area where we had meetings with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, and they had done some prior work in this area. But they said that this is an area they don't understand very much. So they'll be only too happy if logistics division takes lead and takes this forward. So in pursuance to this, we have held some meetings with the institutions, and pretty much on the same lines as the TARI is doing, building coalitions, trying to get all the facts and all the solutions, all the challenges that urban freight faces on the table, and then see what exactly can be done in what time frames. And in that context, this coalition that Terry has put together is very timely. I must congratulate Terry for this, and do hope that this initiative, fits into the government's initiative towards improving urban freight movement. Now, coming to the urban freight issues, as we were thinking around how do we address those issues, and you mentioned about electric vehicles for last mile delivery in the cities. But we realized that, yes, this is an important area, but there are many more areas that one need to look at. And it has to start, perhaps with planning for cities. I think most of the cities are old in India, and urban freight issues did not come to the attention of the city planners or even governments until very recently. In fact, I would say that even globally, there is very little work that has been done uh, across different countries in the area of city logistics, urban freight movement, etc. But I'm sure that in city planning, this becomes a very important part. But if you look, do Google search, you will not find too much of work in this space. This is, I think, beginning to get a lot of attention now. And therefore, it is very timely that TARI is into this space and trying to put together a coalition wherein all research can be put together. Now, coming to what the logistics division plans to do in this space. In fact, in the next few days, we are going to have a national workshop wherein we are inviting the state governments and some of the cities to adopt a broad strategy that we have devised on the urban freight issues. And that strategy is, around creating institutional structures at the city level for coordination, because that is more important. This is not driven by policy. I think it has to be driven by local action, local coordinated action, between city governments, the state governments in some cases will get involved. But more importantly, the private stakeholders in that ecosystem. And I think even though there may be some coordination between traffic departments and municipal authorities and district administration in some cases, but I don't see across the country any coordination with the private stakeholders, who are actually moving all the freight in the cities. So if we can bring together that kind of a coordinated approach to freight movement at the city level, I think it will itself address a lot of issues. Because once they start discussing those issues and applying their mind in the local context, I'm sure they will also be able to find solutions to those problems, which can be more nuanced than the blunt instruments that are used for closing the city for freight movement for certain hours of the day, etc., etc. So I think this is the beginning. Obviously, last mile connectivity and use of small vehicles, developing consolidation centers, in the peri-urban areas. So we have over the last few weeks, made a list of 10 to 12 low-hanging activities that these cities can immediately take up, so that they can begin to see some change on the ground level, happening. And in that respect, if the coalition could support in getting more ideas on the table, we are not looking for hard data. We are looking for good solutions that are quickly implementable with little resources. So we can, the whole idea is to get cities and state governments excited about the whole idea of thinking about freight logistics. And if they begin to see some benefits on working on this idea, I'm sure moving forward they will invest their time and energy and maybe funding and investments into this particular space. So I'll stop here and once again congratulate Terry for this wonderful initiative on this very momentous occasion. As I think Mr. Seth pointed out, this is the 6th anniversary of smart cities. In fact, what we are trying to do for freight movement in the urban areas, devise another term, and that is called as the freight smart cities. So, and we intend to do 75 freight smart cities in near future. Okay, so that is our intent. Maybe this concept of freight smart cities also gains momentum and gains currency as we move forward. Defining this concept is going to be extremely difficult in the next few months as we move forward. And work with Terry is going to be very, very important for us in that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your keynote address. I also want to assure you that we have been working with some of the cities and implementing and suggesting some of the good solutions as well. And the work is the work has just started. We are continually working on the solutions. So just a note on that, we are going to sign MOUs with Karnataka's DULT very shortly. Mr. Satya is here on the call, and as well as School of Planning and Architecture to take this work forward. And hopefully we'll have a blessings of logistics division as well. So with that word, I would really thank all the speakers of the inaugural session. And now it's time to move on to the next presentation, where we have we'll discuss about some of the activities that we have undertaken under this current Sustainable Urban Freight Initiative. Just share my screen and request also all the participants to stay through the presentation, so that we'll apprise them you all on the activities that we have undertaken. I hope my screen is visible. So this particular coalition, and thank you for the launch, sir. Today, the website is live now, and audience and people can go on the website and look for it. But I'll just run through some of the activities and work that we have been undertaking in this to see what are the vision and mission of this initiative. Now, it's very basic. The vision is to create sustainable urban freight solutions in the operations sector in India, and to create, and also sir mentioned about supporting. We have this mission of supporting the initiative at a national level, for cost and emission. So initially we thought that it should be an emission because TERI being environment and sustainable related activities. But once we delved into it, we realized that it is not only emissions that would lead to a reduction in urban freight that is required, but also cost aspect of logistics and urban freight. Once the actual user or individual is convinced about the cost reduction, is not going to shift to a low carbon initiative, come what may. So that's important to focus as well through this initiative. This initiative is not possible without the proper help and support of the stakeholders in the urban freight sector. We do have support from the government agencies, OEMs, SIAM is there, logistics service providers, the key players in this initiative, research and academic institutes, civil society organizations, industry members, and as well as individuals. And a lot of students have come up with their research papers and articles on urban freight and shared their thoughts on it, which have been posted on this website as well. So website has a repository of these work going forward. So what are the kind of activities that we have undertaken in this? It could be broadly bucketed into 4 sets: engagement with cities, capacity building workshops, SUF platform that we are here today for, as well as pilot implementation. So of the 4, this is one set of activities that we have gathered today for to launch the platform or the website. Now, we have been engaging with Surat Municipal Corporation and departments within Surat government to look into the solutions for solid waste management. Also the associations and, right from bakers to textile owners and tempo owners. So these are the associations we have engaged with. DULT, SIAM, OEMs, and other research institutes. We have had partnerships with multiple stakeholders. These are some few names listed here. And also the kind of policy support that we have shared with the SMC as well in tendering on the understanding economic feasibility of the particularly the EV solution for solid waste management. We also have workshops related to the SUFC collaboration, and these are related to EV adoption, freight related activities, as well as textile and bakery organic waste solutions. So these are some of the activities that we have already undertaken. Just a second. Sorry for the interruption. The sustainable urban freight in Bangalore also we held a workshop on it. I'll be talking about it briefly in the next few slides. And also about the low carbon demonstration or adoption. So through these stakeholder workshops between OEMs and the associations that we discussed earlier, happy to report that we do have EVs deployed in the city of Surat through these activities. We are also in touch with SMC and preparing and hopefully we'll have tender release to replace all the solid waste management related vehicles to electric. Starting with very few to replace the tractor operations to collect waste in the city of Surat. These are some of the activities listed for Surat, as I mentioned, there are about 908 vehicles that are deployed for Surat Municipal Corporation for solid waste management. And the aim is to completely switch to EVs. Initially, the plan is to move to about 50 plus vehicles to replace tractors. Then we have the textile and tempo owners who have been actively working in this direction and quite enthusiastic about this particular technology. And we did realize that it has a huge use case for a shift to EVs as well. We also have bakery and organic waste collection system that could be shifted to electric, and therefore 5 electric vehicles have already been purchased by these agencies. So that's a small beginning, but yes, things are starting to look up on this. So under this study, we also try to analyze what's the kind of vehicle mix and the emission scenario for solid waste management. This is a snapshot of it, where we look at what's the kind of vehicles, what's the kind of percentage of vehicle utilization, what's the load factor for each of the vehicle types, as well as the emission reduction, emission that is happening right now. And we see that there is a huge potential of emission reduction. Of course, in the phase 1, where 21 tractors are to be replaced, about 3% reduction from the current emission from this particular segment, and building up to 77% reduction from current emissions. So that is what we are looking at. In Bangalore, in the month of April, we held a workshop, and there was a huge participation as well, based on which we are formally entering into collaboration with state governments and agencies there, not only to look at Bangalore, but also other cities of the state in Karnataka. And I have highlighted some of the bottlenecks. I'm not going to go into the details, but we are all aware of what the challenges are and where the opportunities are in this particular sector. Coming to the platform, the website, and the focus group that we have listed here, and we mentioned about them in the stakeholder segment as well. So the aim is primarily to create a knowledge and learning platform where all the repository of research works and papers and modeling exercises that have been done are placed in one single platform, and will be compiling as we go along with this project to have a more robust knowledge center. Capacity building of policymakers, like we did for Surat and as well as in the initial stages in Bangalore. Integrating experiential research, as I mentioned, we'll have a lot of experience-related papers and activities listed here. Facilitating partnerships. The platform also gives an opportunity to the stakeholders to kind of become a member of it and exchange ideas, and also look at the opportunities in this urban freight sector. Value addition and user-friendly mode of knowledge sharing. So once you become a member or register yourself on this website, you have the access to a lot of research and knowledge on this particular topic. So this we have already discussed. This is how one can join these Urban Freight Coalition. You just visit the website. There is a charter. Download the charter. You sign up for it. I'll also share the screen in terms of how one can go about it. And we have a voluntary discussion declaration, not a mandatory one at this stage. And these are very basic in terms of committing towards a sustainable urban freight. And these are guided by the 4 goals of sustainable development, 3, 9, 11, and 17. And the responsibilities are quite simple. Actively contribute towards the activities of SUFC, experiential knowledge regarding SUF, and building activities in community and sharing experience as well. So this is primarily how one can join the website and become a member of the SUFC. There is a charter that one can go and click and read it, and based on the category of the organization or individual, also we have given a option for individual users as well. So you can sign up to the charter, and once you can download it, sign it, and upload it, and then you will have access to a lot of information there. Some of the partners, we are in discussion with Niti Aayog and Logistics Division on this. Apart from that, we have participations from DULT, Surat SMC, Kinetic Greens, Piaggio, Mahindra Rice, Tata Motors, Resilient Surat, Resilient Strata, and Duro Green. This is a small list, and we hope that we'll have much more participation and partners on board to take it forward, and we really rely on that aspect of partnership. Last slide, next steps. What are we going and planning to do? expand the capacity building workshops and discussion with cities, as Agarwal sir mentioned about looking at city level and partnering and collaborating with cities. So this platform also gives us the opportunity to go to the cities and not only be within a particular city as a standalone city, but also from one city to another, how experience could be shared towards that what the city has already undertaken. So how can we leverage that information? So that's one thing that we plan to do. Monitoring the pilot that we have conducted in the city of Surat and see what are the benefits and in terms of economic and environment. Running pilot projects in a scalable manner in different cities. Assistance for planning sustainable urban freight for cities. Policy suggestions and recommendations which will become a backbone of the urban freight decarbonization initiative, as well as incorporate long distance freight activities in scope. So we are not limiting ourselves to urban freight, but we also want to scale it up to other aspect of long distance freight. Of course, we are working on other aspect already, but we just want to integrate it and discuss it on a larger platform. So that's all from my side. And these are the coordinates in terms of how and where one can reach out to. You can write to us on safcoalition@terry.res.in, or you can also access the reports that are already published on this particular research study. We'll be coming up with one final report on this study in the month of July, and which will be published on the website as well. So that's all from my side. Now I'll request. Yeah, so that's all from the perspective of the work and the information that we have on the urban freight side that we have been working on. The next session is on basically a roundtable discussion, and so we'll have Mr. Partho Basu to moderate the session. So we have eminent speakers as well. Mr. Sudhendu Jasina, advisor, Niti Aayog Transport. Mr. Satyajit from DULT. Ms. Sulaja Motwani from Kinetic Green. Mr. Kamlesh Yagnik from Surat. And we have a slight change. We have Mr. Vivek Chandran from Shakti to represent Shakti and their initiatives. But before I hand it over, I kind of forgot to mention about the the work that we have been doing and really acknowledging the effort of my team members. So before I kind of give the floor to Partho, I really want to thank each one of our team members and also the stakeholders, particularly Arvind and Viral, who have been working on it, but other team members as well. Mr. Shipukash for guiding us, Mr. Ivy Rao as well, and Seth sir, of course. So over to you, Partho, for the discussion. Thank you.
Sharif, just before Partho comes in, I would not want Agarwal Saab to be holding him back from his commitments that he has made elsewhere. So, sir, please don't be under any pressure. If you have commitments that you need to attend to, please feel free to leave this, sir. Thank you very much for your presence.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Seth, and thank you. I really enjoyed the presentation and the whole session. Look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Partho, please carry on.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Seth. Thank you, Sharif, for the excellent presentation. I should start by thanking Terry for this excellent opportunity and also for hosting this program. We have an excellent panel. Out of this panel, there is Vivek, with whom I had the opportunity of interacting a long time. And we have Ms. Motwani, with whom I have been interacting for many ages, ever since I used to work for the CIAM, and she used to be one of my committee chairmen and chairpersons. Sorry for that. Good morning to you all. Good afternoon, rather, almost. Is it 11:50? Good morning to you all, and thank you very much for joining this exciting session in the morning. I would just like to start with a very small background. I do come from the automobile industry, and I do have a fair bit of knowledge about the commercial vehicle sector. But the work on the freight started absolutely by accident. I mean, I was just overnight asked to present at the environmentally sustainable development conference, which is hosted by the UNCRD, the United Nations Charter for Regional Development. And that's when I started reading about freight, and I realized the complexities that the freight industry has, whether it is the vehicles by virtue of what they're supposed to do, and the kind of emissions that is associated with them. And that was the year 2012, 2011. And after that, I met several stakeholders in order to see how can we, what can be done in order to solve this problem. And Mr. Agarwal talked about how MOC, Minister of Commerce Logistics Division, came into being just about four and a half years back. And during that time, I met Professor Sundar, Dr. Sundar, S. Sundar, who was then advisor Terry, late Sundar Saab, who left us a couple of weeks back, and with whom we started the first Green Trade India working group. That was a national level working group housed within NIDI. And Niti Aayog was actually hosting the first meeting. Dr. Manoj Singh as advisor and Dr. Devroy inaugurated. And Minister of Heavy Industries, because there was no parent ministry, and we thought that commercial industries, so the Minister of Heavy Industries by default would be the parent ministry, and we got Ambuj Sharma, Minister Ambuj Sharma, to be the co-chair of that channel. And that's how we started this. And well, we could not run it for a very long time. We ran it for about 2 years. And after that, Niti Aayog and MOHI gave up, and also we could not run it for very long. And but then there were many challenges that time, many challenges. We did not have the stakeholders, we did not have the fundings, we did not have the interest or priorities on climate or air pollution as a topic, or green as a topic. The private sector was still coming on board. And as Sharif talked about the cost sector, I mean, there was a cost perspective as well, which was not yet built during that time. So this forum somehow gives me a lot of confidence that things are going to be very different now. And with that, I get into the first speaker. I have with me Mr. Sudhendu Sinha, advisor, Niti Aayog. Mr. Sinha, first of all, congratulations to Niti for promoting the freight and electrification, both the subjects, in a big way. And I have 2 questions for you. One is that there is something called the Urban Mobility India. It's a conference which is being organized by the Minister of Heavy Industries and Minister of Urban Development Industry, earlier MOUD, now MOHUA, for now about 14 years. And this is one event where all stakeholders from urban mobility come and join once in a year. It started in a small way, it grew big. All the stakeholders, private sector, think tanks, NGO, civil society, government, they all come in. Do you think something like that can be done also for the freight, where on an annual basis or on a biannual basis, all the stakeholders can meet and deliberate of how freight as a subject can be dealt with, and how certain pathways can be designed for depending on the city's requirement, because each city is also different. So I understand that your views will come from the central ministry perspective, but even then, how do you see that, sir?
No, Partha, what you said is very correct. I am rather, from my side, individually as well as from Niti perspective, let me tell you that we were ready to buy that particular idea. It should be. The problem has been that the urban freight hitherto has always been a kind of, it has been on the margins. Very few sustainability initiatives have been done in that field, not only in India, but even internationally, the same status is there. Because in urban freight, if you try to analyze, we can segregate it into 2 portions. And I'm just not trying to bring the shadow of passenger in any way. One is, of course, the light movement. And second is, of course, the heavy duty freight. As far as heavy duty is concerned, what Sriprakash said right now, a little before, he said that the robustness of technology is yet to be established. That is the reason why you see, if you see the sale of heavy duty vehicles of say last year, even in China, then you would see that 95% of them has been on the passenger segment, not in the freight segment. That I'm talking of the electric mobility kind of thing or any other form of the type. So they are still toying with the idea whether it should be a kind of catenary based traction based system, whether it should be an electric mobility that is battery based or it should be hydrogen fuel based. Still that thing is that debate is going on. So technological robustness has to be established. Then only that heavy duty thing will be able to addressed. Not like light duty, let's come to. Yes. As far as light duty vehicles are concerned, light duty freight vehicles are concerned, definitely that movement is, it is very much doable. That sustainability, the paradigm can always be introduced there. That precisely what Terry is working, that we heard of Sharif and his team is working in Bangalore, Surat, and all these places. That is completely doable. In the month of April, we had a roundtable. On 14th April, we had a roundtable of all those people who are in the kind of end mile delivery, kind of that solution is there. And we are the best in the world. So we had Amazon, Flipkart, IKEA, along with that, the Indian counterparts also. And let me tell you, it was very positive. I mean, it will be very positive for all the participants also. Each one of them evinced interest. It was a kind of commitment. Of course, they had their own issues, but almost everybody was ready to commit that they would like to completely replace their existing ICE models into the EV kind of stuff for the end mile solutions. But yes, as far as the connectivity between the highway and the warehouse, not the warehouse and the residential areas, highway and the warehouse is concerned, that is a big challenge, because as I told you, that is precisely the heavy duty one. So there may be the sustainability factor, may not be, it may not be possible to introduce at this stage, but yes, for the other portion, it is doable. And what we started with, whether we should have such a mobility conclave, such a mobility deliberation, yes, we should definitely. Then only we can pull it from the margins to the center focus. Yes, Partha.
Thank you. No, because the point is that by saying that urban mobility India we have been doing every year, we have not solved the urban mobility problem, but at least we have been able to bring it to the forefront of discussion with various states. And also the point is that when you talk about the long haul, I completely understand the challenge. And whereas long haul is also a very important area, and I'm happy to talk about it at some point of time. But then, for example, if you take the analogy of how the government has worked on the NCAP is fantastic. It has targets, and it is tying the targets with the deliverables. It has indicators. Now, if we can design something like this for the states, where the deliverables can be tied to a goal and there can be target settings for that. I fail to understand, sir, how will the cities achieve cleaner air without addressing the freight problem? It is such an intrinsic part of the whole thing. So do you think something like this can also be done in order to set some standards and set some kind of a perimeter for the states and cities to follow?
Now, Partha, what you are doing is you are trying to address a very massive ecosystem of the freight component only. Because that means that you are now entering into not only the space of urban local bodies, but the traffic regulatory authorities and so many other points are there. But yes, if this, as I told you, it is doable. That portion is doable. The only thing is that probably we need that this discourse has to continue. And the way, for example, Terry is attempting to work at Surat and Bengaluru, if they are in a position to, which I am quite confident they will be, if they are in a position to transform it into a kind of lighthouse city, then that fragrance, that cascading impact can take it forward, then it can be taken forward by the other cities. Everybody, all these ULBs, they are just thinking, who first? There have been minor initiatives. It is not there. In Pune, they have initiated some things. So there are states which are doing something, but then how to completely go in for that complete overall of that model and replacing the completely bringing into that sustainability component, that is a challenge, and that can only be addressed, as you are trying to say, is that once we start addressing the complete ecosystem, then only that is doable. Yes, please.
Right. No, thank you very much. This is fantastic. In fact, your previous point about the electrification is also something very, very important. I hope, Ms. Motwani, you are able to address that point when I come to you. But just in a moment before that, I want to take up with Mr. Satyajit Aritikutram. Sir, congratulations very much. I understand that you're signing an MOU now with Terry in order to address the urban freight problem, but not only in Bangalore, but whole of Karnataka, which is very, very impressive and very, very ambitious, sir. Why don't you tell us a little about it?
Thanks, Partho. I think this is, as you rightly said, last focus for entire Karnataka, and essentially realized that we are preparing what we call as comprehensive mobility plans. The urban freight is actually a big gap. Nobody knows what happens, even if you look at the directional transport planning. Whatever is the missing component, they attribute to pedestrians, cyclists, and some goods vehicle, just to sort of calibrate the model. And I think the commissioner at basically foresaw that there's a need for this last year. And when TI came with that concept of sustainable freight workshop at Bangalore, we took it with welcome arms. So that's absolutely what we were looking for. And that's at the tone. So data availability. And I think earlier, many speakers alluded to the fact that it's not about just a top-down approach. You need to really localize it. Every stakeholder need to embrace it. And there are some good international practices, which I think the City of London 10 years ago, they started something called as Freight Quality Partnership. Freight Quality Partnership essentially is you basically dissect the entire value chain, supply chain. What happens? Where does it start? Where does it end? Where are the bottlenecks? Who is accountable and who is responsible to remove that bottleneck? And what are the barriers for it? So it's devils in the detail. So there are several freight quality partnerships operating in the UK. And you mentioned about what incentives can be created in such a way wherein the entire ecosystem naturally embraces clean energy and also like you mentioned, greening of freight rather than trying to simply think only from one dimension. One of the things which we can think of is essentially what incentive does an operator have to migrate to an electric vehicle? I think Mr. Sudhan rightly said, the heavy long distance sector can't happen overnight because technology is not yet mature. But even in the last mile, the range anxiety, and then there is this big issue, just the elephant in the room which nobody is addressing, the load factors. IC can take easily 30% extra load factor, whereas your electric vehicle can't take it. We can't be in denial of that. Some sort of, I think, either regulatory tightening, that in a sense that, okay, you have been having a free day till now, loading up your 2-ton vehicle with 6 tons and moving around slowly, reducing network efficiency. That's not going to happen anymore. So that regulatory tightening, plus incentives on the EV side, alongside the maturing of the battery technology, so that confidence in the fleet operators will come through naturally. So that pathway has to be also thought through. And I think at that, we are looking in partnership with TRI, first of all, to understand the baseline. What's happening on the urban freight in cities of Karnataka? That's the first part. And second, what interventions, almost put it in 3 buckets, immediate, short-term, medium-term strategies, all dovetailing into one unison, wherein the freight sector itself moves and takes responsibility naturally to become a more sustainable ecosystem. That's the perspective in which we want to take up for freight here. And it may come as some good news to the entire fraternity of who are interested in urban freight. Going forward, our comprehensive mobility plan will have a sharper focus on what's happening in urban freight. Where are they moving? You usually have this OD matrix for people move from here to here. But where are these goods moving? What's our supply chain? And the rail sector, are they rightly having their depots and do they have enough space for charging and other things, so that the last devils in the detail. And that's where we want to focus on moving forward. So, like Sharif rightly mentioned, we are pleased to send that MOU to So in partnership, which is the theme of this. So yeah, it can't be done in isolation. So we look forward to this partnership, and hopefully, like Mr. Sudhindra said, Bangalore and Karnataka will create many lighthouses in this space.
Right. In fact, you made some very important points, Mr. Satya, because you talked about not only the load capacity, but you also talked about how there is a lot of various ways the freight have been moving, and it should not be only a top-down approach. Just tell me one thing. In order to understand the ground realities and the constraints that probably various freight service providers or various services, for example, there used to be non-motorized freight in the Chickpet area and all those kind of places where the wholesale markets and all that. Now that is being replaced slowly with electric. And still there are many modes, and we have multiplicity of modes here for providing urban freight services. Do you try to bring them in the room and try to understand the constraints in order to find solutions? Do you do this kind of process? And if you do, then how often do you think is it possible to create a permanent window for something like that?
Yeah, correct, Partha. I think you're right. Absolutely, that's what we plan to do. And unfortunately, we couldn't do it because of the COVID lockdowns and other things. We actually have got a long list. Basically, we know where our APMC as the state of Karnataka, who are the stakeholders, how do goods come here, from where do they come and where do they go. And especially the inner markets, like I think we have plans to really do some stakeholder survey, perception survey. And I think this is something for Sheriff to consider. We need to encourage them to be part of this coalition too. So because they give the ground reality, they give you what the bottlenecks are. What they also throw like a huge flashlight on where the regulatory gaps are, regulatory goals are. If it is undefined, it's an opportunity for our arbitrariness. And I think that's what we need to get rid of. Like it's easy to say, blunt tools like the fact about right to say, okay, no truck enters from 9 to 8, 9 to 10, 9 to 10. So that basically increases your cost of supply chain, which trickles down to your cost of your product eventually. If you make your supply chain inefficient, it has to sort of manifest itself in some other way. So there are some other normal things like, okay, you have got your nighttime loading thing. Why don't you do that? Because we are talking about 24/7 economy. The network is out there in the night. Can we have this ecosystem, especially those which cause network inefficiencies, to migrate to nighttime? And you can also come up with voluntary systems like, because subsidies again, which everybody thinks that that's the sort of mother of all solutions. That's not the right way to go about. You have to have an incentive mechanism where subsidy really recognizes market failure or a policy incentive rather than just, okay, you buy this, I'm going to give you 45,000 off, 50,000 off, something like that. So like, say for instance, if you had a freight operator rating system, depending on fleet operational management practices and other things. And some UK actually runs this on a voluntary basis. Any fleet operator signs up to that and they get rated on a gold, silver, or bronze. And then if other trade bodies say, okay, I always make my supply chain through a gold rated fleet operator. So that's a plus point for that. So that's the sort of system we need to move to. Tiny steps, but in the right direction. That's what we are looking at.
Thank you very much, Mr. Satya. Do we have Mr. Yagnik? I do not see him.
Partha, Mr. Yagnik hasn't joined yet. We are following up with his office, so we may proceed.
Sure, perfect. So to Ms. Motwani, you heard both the sides. You also heard about some of the ground challenges that are being faced, which Mr. Satya also talked about. But before we talk about that, Ms. Motwani, I know that how passionate you are about the subject and how you have been pursuing it. And not only that, you have a vast understanding of this entire spectrum because you have been with the automobile. You come from that family. You understand that thing very well. First of all, what are the challenges? Although we talk about electrification and we are going for it and we have embarked into that journey of electrification. But what do you think? What do you need if you are given that opportunity to be able to provide everything that an manufacturer would need in order to scale up the and maximum buying of the consumers? What is that you would require? Can't hear you, Ms. Motwani.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Good afternoon to all of you. And first of all, a big congratulations to Terry on the launch of this Sustainable Urban Freight Charter and website. I think it's a wonderful initiative, and I think it will go a long way, in bringing stakeholders together to build green corridors in our cities. So kudos to you, and thanks a lot for all your effort. I want to also thank Mr. Suvendu Sinha from Niti Aayog, Mr. Pavan Agarwalji from MOCI, and Mundolji from EDF. Decision makers and influencers like you participating in these ventures will go a long way, to create the right ecosystem, the right momentum to make all these initiatives a great success. So thank you, sir, very much for your guidance. Now, coming to the, your question, Partha, I think I would like to say that we have been working in this field for the last few years, and in electric vehicles, and specifically focusing on this entire aspect of urban freight. What can be done to make this initiative a success. And I would like to say that at this point, I'm very optimistic and confident that certainly right time has come where we can build sustainable solutions for urban freight using electric vehicles or e-mobility. It takes a few years for things to come together, various, whether it's product, technology, ecosystem, policies. And I believe we are at the cusp of all of that now. A lot has happened in the last few years. And because of that, I feel that the right time has come to accelerate on this, put the foot on the accelerator. I believe that what is needed, however, is focus and action. It's of course a very vast field, urban freight, and we would like to, make everything green, everything sustainable. But I think that if we focus on a few low-hanging fruits and make successful pilots or actual, deploy many vehicles in these low-hanging fruits, it will build the ecosystem and the momentum. And second thing that's required now is action. Given the right policy framework, and organizations like Terry coming together with other partners in the ecosystem, action is required. Let me talk about both of these a little bit. When I say focus, I believe that the low-hanging fruits are in the areas of intracity, as Sinaji also mentioned, that it will be difficult to put electric vehicles which are required to go from one city to another city. We don't have charging infrastructure on the highways. But intracity itself is a large market. The problem of pollution also is magnified in our urban centers. So if we are able to green these and reduce the pollution, I think it will go a long way in making our air more breathable. Secondly, for the last mile, in the intracity, we can quickly deploy small electric vehicles like electric three-wheelers and electric two-wheelers, which can, increase the use of e-mobility for the last mile deliveries, last mile logistics in the intracity areas. And why this is easier is for two reasons. One is because, since these are small vehicles and they're going only intracity, we don't need a very large charging infrastructure in order to put them on the roads. We can deploy these vehicles with about 100 or 120 kilometers range on the vehicles, and maybe with a little bit of top-up charging, during the day, between the two shifts. They can do the job required of meeting the requirements for delivery of packages or food, whatever is the application based, on a single day basis. Secondly, because these small electric vehicles, given the right support now that has come, with huge incentives on electric two-wheelers, which are approved, the subsidy has been enhanced to 15,000 rupees per kilowatt hour. And for electric three-wheelers, we have brought CESL or ESL on board to help aggregate demand. I think we have solutions with which we can put cost-effective, almost on parity kind of pricing vehicles on the road. So it's also more affordable than looking at cars or trucks, which are much more expensive. The TCO is not as attractive. So the small electric vehicles, two-wheelers and three-wheelers, are cost-effective. We have enough ability to put a good amount of energy on board, so that we don't need a large charging infrastructure. And if we use our last mile logistics, make it green, we can reduce pollution in our cities. So I think the first focus in the next few years should be on deploying electric three-wheelers, electric two-wheelers for last mile deliveries in our cities. This focus will really help. Now, when I talk about action, I think I believe that there are a couple of segments which are absolutely ripe for, going green. And if together all of us stakeholders can focus on these few segments and put in place a few pilots, it will build a lot of visibility. The two segments that I would like to emphasize, one is waste management, which I think some of our other speakers also spoke about. I want to share with all of you that as a OEM, we have deployed more than 4,000 vehicles in the last few years for waste management, electric three-wheelers. And these have been very successful initiatives. Waste management can be, electric vehicles can be deployed, three-wheelers specifically I'm talking about, both in small villages, in small cities, as well as now in big cities. If you use electric vehicles for waste management, of course, your waste management becomes green. It becomes silent. So that when the vehicles are moving early in the morning, there is no sound, there is no vibration, there is no emission, in the neighborhoods. It becomes mechanized. Many places people are still using hand carts. We need to move our rag pickers to dignified livelihoods, not using non-mechanized forms. And also we are creating livelihoods. And last but not the least, the cost of using electric three-wheelers for waste management is a fraction of what you're spending on diesel. On diesel, I think the cost is coming to something between 4 and 10 rupees. 4 to 5 rupees is just cost of the fuel. And then there is this whole maintenance and, the even pilferage of fuel and various other things that add up to the cost that the corporations are paying to the contractors for using diesel vehicles. Running an electric three-wheeler for waste management costs only 40 to 50 paise per kilometer. It's really 1/10 of it. And with lithium-ion batteries, which can now are available, the life of batteries is 3 years, 4 years. And in fact, the waste management application doesn't require too many kilometers running. So battery life can be, elongated further. We can use our depots to charge the vehicles properly. Vehicles can be properly maintained. So certainly it can become also very much viable and in fact very much attractive financially. I want to give a couple of examples of this. We had deployed 3,000 vehicles in the state of Andhra Pradesh over the last few years under a partnership with APSC-ST Corporation, where the APSC-ST Corporation bought those vehicles and each vehicle was deployed in one village. So one electric three-wheeler per village, collecting the garbage of that waste of that village in a mechanized fashion. And one unemployed youth was given a livelihood to do this activity by the Gram Panchayat. So we created livelihoods, we mechanized the waste management, and we reduced the cost of the operation as well. So this certainly can be done in small towns as well as in villages. And for this, you can use a L3N vehicle, the small vehicle like a e-cart for waste management. So it's even cheaper to use. Now coming to big cities like Surat, we have Bangalore. So many partners have come today on board. I want to say that now there are vehicles available. Kinetic itself has a vehicle which has a L5N vehicle, which has a 1-ton GVW, 500 kgs payload. The vehicles can move at a speed of 50-55 kilometers. They can climb all the flyovers. So certainly electric vehicles are now available, which can replace the diesel three-wheelers, which are under use right now in many cities. Of course, the cost of transport will be a fraction, 1/10, 40 paisa, 50 paisa rupees a kilometer, paisa a kilometer vis-a-vis 4, 5, 10 rupees, what I mentioned earlier. And pollution will come down heavily. So certainly vehicles are available, which we can deploy in larger cities now for waste management, to make it green and more affordable. Now, what are the issues that we face as a OEM or as a participant in this ecosystem? I think first of all, what is missing is a push. So things are going on as they're going on. People are used to buying certain vehicles, they have certain contracts, and if things are just going on, there needs to be an intervention or a mandate that no, electric three-wheelers must be deployed for waste management. So that push needs to come. According to me, that push can come from the center first, with influencers like Niti Aayog and others, Department of Commerce. If we can talk through the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, through the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, bring the push on the Swachh Andhra Pradesh or Swachh Karnataka, Swachh Maharashtra, bring push on the state governments that you have to buy electric vehicles for waste management. You should not deploy any more diesel vehicles. So that mandate is required. This is the first thing that is required. Otherwise, there is no incentive for people to really, change what they are doing. Second thing, we have now CESL or ESL as an aggregator. They have come forward to aggregate vehicles. So state governments need not even buy the vehicles, or the municipal corporation need not even buy the vehicles. CSL can procure the vehicles and give them on some kind of a structured financing model to the corporations. So financing is now available. So I would encourage all the municipal corporations and the state governments to participate, to partner with CSL, ESL, to come forward for aggregation, to put electric vehicles, for waste management, electric three-wheelers. The third thing I think is what is missing is vision. Many small municipal corporations keep doing tenders for electric three-wheelers, but there is no guideline, there is no specification that is standardized. They don't even know that they should buy vehicles with lithium-ion battery, there should be service contracts. So they end up giving very low-end kind of specifications, buying very poor quality vehicles with lead acid batteries. And instead of the vehicles carrying, being used to collect kachra, the vehicles itself become kachra after a while because they are not properly maintained, they're not charged, the vehicles itself are not of a good spec. So this then, creates a bad example. So if there is a standardization of the procurement criteria, then good vehicles will come on the streets. Yeah. We have recently given 1,000 vehicles in the city of Chennai. I'm very proud of this partnership, where 1,000 rack pickers have been employed by the city through Ramki, who are our partners, who are managing the entire waste management. And they are using our electric three-wheelers to collect door-to-door segregated waste at the point of collection. And it's a very successful initiative. So certainly these are now, implementable, in large numbers. So this is one thing on which I think is a big segment, which is waste management. We need a lot of support from the states on this. The second segment, of course, is logistics and e-commerce, where a lot has been happening. And customers are willing to buy vehicles. I think I just want to say a couple of things because many things have already been said. I think there are a couple of enablers that are required for using more electric three-wheelers for e-commerce. Terry has done a study which has shown that three-wheelers are more suitable than four-wheelers because they are more optimized in the meeting the requirement of the e-commerce companies. So cost is lower, the whole equation is much more economically attractive. But what is happening is that there is very poor financing support for electric three-wheelers. The individuals who are buying three-wheelers and putting them for delivery, NBFCs and banks are not financing electric three-wheelers. We need to make more finance available for these vehicles. Even the third-party logistics companies are also in need of financing. So some more work on financing of these vehicles needs to be done. Maybe CSL can play a key role in this. And the second thing, I think some support from state government also will help. Like Delhi has already come up with some norms that if you're using a diesel vehicle, you can only do deliveries, at certain hours, non-peak hours. I think 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., something like that, or 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. But if you're using an electric vehicle, two-wheeler or three-wheeler, you can do deliveries all day. So they're giving an indirect commercial incentive to the e-commerce companies. Similarly, state government should come forward and tell the e-commerce companies that, look, 50% of your fleet must be electric. There needs to be some kind of a mandating and push, creating that expectation. And I think there are some charging points throughout the city. It will also encourage people to buy electric three-wheelers for cargo because they feel, okay, I can, charge my vehicle when there's a downtime. It will help, but it's not a must, honestly. People can charge vehicles, at the point of their depots or operating areas. So these are my few inputs. I think the time has come to put large number of electric vehicles, specifically three-wheelers and two-wheelers for urban freight greening. And what is required is a push, and what is required is partnerships and pilots, meaningful large-scale pilots to really create examples of successful examples. As Kinetic Green, we would be very happy to partner and share our learnings with anybody who would like to come and see any of the work we have done and take it ahead. So thank you very much for this initiative once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. 2-mark question.
Sure.
Wall socket or charging station or battery swap?
So I think for three-wheelers, both are very useful. Charging as well and swapping as well. Both are welcome. Because both will enable the customer to earn more. Swapping is better because there is not even no downtime. But for this non-passenger or cargo applications, we have seen that people work in shifts. So there's typically a morning peak time 8 to 12, and then there is a peak time, let's say, 4 to 8. So there is time in between that vehicle can be recharged. So charging can also work. It need not be swapping. For passenger application, when the vehicle is running through the day, swapping is much better because if he waits for charging, then he loses livelihood. So, but for cargo solutions, both are welcome.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Vivek, I hope you're doing well.
Hi, Partha. Thank you.
Okay, so Vivek, you come from Shakti. Shakti has a fantastic track record of helping and supporting freight work. I mean, you gave the country the first e-hailing Uber for trucks when Uber was not even present. I mean, you have been much before the curve, I must say. You in fact, you set up something called the Chennai Freight Partnership way back in 2016 or 2017. Now, my question is that and I know that the kind of support that you're providing also to IIT Madras, which is just fantastic. Now, the point is that it is I know that you see that there is a role that the civil society will play. And in this discussion, as you could see, where Mr. Sina spoke, Satya spoke, and Ms. Motwani spoke, you can see if there's a triangle of a three-dimensional triangle where you have the government on one side, where there is a lot needed by the government to provide infrastructure to electric vehicle manufacturers to be able to roll out the vehicles properly, and the vehicle manufacturers to be able to provide the cost, etc., and those kind of things, and also to build trust. Do you think the civil society can actually come in as a fantastic broker of building that relationship, because they have actually the least amount of interest in the whole thing apart from the good interest of making the thing happen?
Thanks, Partha. It's a great question. But firstly, I'd like to start by congratulating Terry's team for putting this together, and all of the coalition partners for coming together for this coalition and setting the charter, putting together the website. So congrats there. On your question, Partha, I think to an extent, you're answering the question by itself. This coalition is to an extent civil society led, right? And it is a great example of how civil society can contribute as a neutral partner. I think civil society has really helped from many different aspects. From even now, if you look at HDVs, just looking at the practicality or techno-economic, feasibility of HDVs. At least now we know, okay, it's possible. Yes, there's plenty of work to be done in terms of getting the manufacturing issues out of the way, establishing those systems and skills and many other pieces that need to fall in place. But to an extent, it has sounded off that here's an opportunity that's coming up, right? And we need to be aware of it. From there onwards, to the point of even looking at piloting, learning how you bring the ecosystem together through stakeholder convening, building consensus. These are all important aspects. And to an extent, I see civil society having played a very important role in all of these. Also, I think sometime early on, one of the speakers has alluded to the problems of data. Just not having enough data, not having enough evidence. I mean, how do you convince someone of the benefits of a certain action without sufficient data about it? So I think in all of these aspects, we've seen that civil society has played an important role. In terms of, I think, a couple of other areas in terms of what kind of policy structures can help, what kind of gaps exist. These are also important aspects that civil society has been able to point out. For example, if you were to take the platform itself that you took as an example, or in Chennai, the work that was done of bringing the city together, bringing logistic players together. The gap there is of one, understanding what the policies could be, what would help industry respond. Similarly, what the city needs to do, essentially to kind of put these pieces in place. Then from there, what kind of OEM, the role OEMs can play, what kind of vehicles are required, how much of it is required, what the logistics operator will play. So those are the kind of pieces I would think that civil society is best placed to put in place earlier than before, before actions really scale up, because we can be that catalyst that kind of starts the conversation, starts it early enough that piloting happens, learning happens, and that can be then scaled up. So I feel that is an important role that civil society plays, and that's what we see ourselves doing as well through Shakti and our partner of civil society organizations that we work with. Yeah, I'm guessing that's broadly my response.
And you must have heard Mr. Satya talk about the CMP and how they are planning to tie the CMP. So if you remember, the JNURM, which actually was a fantastic driver for the urban renewable mission and how it pushed safe, state-of-the-art buses into the cities. But people look at it that way. But another way of looking at it is that JNURM also gave the opportunity of the cities to devise very good CMP, the comprehensive mobility plans, and to tie them up with urban mobility. Do you think some way we can have freight figuring in there? And do you think that will be a good way to assist? Because then whatever you have heard so far, starting from Mr. Sinha to what Mr. Satya talked about and also Ms. Motwani talked about, I think that is a very good way to tie up all the things into one way where some action and some good action and relationship with the air quality can also be drawn together.
No, certainly, I think cities have a very important role to play, at least from the demand point of view, and to be able to articulate demand very clearly as to where the applications of urban freight itself will occur, as well as probably on freight itself. And yes, plans are important. Without the plans, we will struggle on putting our actions together. So certainly, there's no doubt about it. Yes, CMPs are very mobility, as in people-centric at this point. We need to expand that definition to freight. CTTPs, to an extent, did that job to some level. But I think, yes, talking about how freight moves in the city is a very important step. But to an extent, I would also say that what is more important is, to an extent, and which can be far more catalytic, is the technological change, which is also harder in this case to do, right? And that transition needs not only an urban body and urban level actions to be taken, but also several central level actions and state level actions to be taken. Because supply itself is the constraint here, right? The conditions to create sufficient supply of vehicles is an important challenge. To give the confidence to industry that here is there are going to be sufficient conditions in which incentives may be provided for HDVs, for example, where currently there is really no action. These are the kind of steps that might actually help industry to, pull ahead a trajectory of electrification, which will happen much later. But how do you pull that ahead? And looking at it from the climate goals, right? I mean, 2050, we need to, if we need to go anywhere close to net zero, at least be close to the 1.5 degree scenario, there is no way we will be able to do that without bringing forward some of these actions. And so, which is why clear kind of systems need to be placed in terms of what role we will all play. So I really see cities as being the place where demand can grow. Air quality is an important lever in that because it has been the challenge for cities. Most large cities have not have challenges on air quality. And looking at it from the point of view of zero emission zone or a low emission zone to start with, could be a good articulation, because then your actions can be focused. A certain area in the city where we need to start piloting, let's say, sustainable freight actions, and then scale it up in, say, 5 years, we go all out for a certain zone, and then the next 10 years, we are far more better off to scale it up to the city level itself. So I guess we need to take a roadmap approach to how we deploy some of our policies going forward.
Right. Thank you, Vivek. Mr. Sinha, you heard all of the speakers by now, and you see there is one thing that keeps coming back again and again, that is knowledge, and that is we need to do pilots, we need to have an understanding, we need to see what is the ground reality. So I think apart from that, one thing that is also becoming quite evident is the capacity. And I wanted to know, do you agree? And if yes, what is the government's plan in capacity building in this particular freight, urban freight, you call it, whatever, in this sector? Sir?
I think we are going in for a kind of lot of engagement with the urban local bodies. And of course, through them, there's RWAs and things like that. And as it has been told earlier also, that capacity, not only with regard to, I mean, it can be on different fronts. For example, managing the contracts could be one. Identifying the right locations for charging infrastructure could be another. Coordinating with the other utility and other partners, that could be another one. Which OEM to select, which model to go in for, that could be another one. So those capacities are definitely, they are much lacking in the, even in the tier 1 ULBs, I would say. Though of course, I mean, I can see that gradually it is coming up, because this street light, that initiative which has been taken up, or smart metering also. So these are some of the initiatives where in the process of something else, that capacity is gradually building up. But yes, capacity has to be built up. We are in the process to take it forward, but then it has to be taken in a still bigger way. That is one. Number two, I presume we also need to have a kind of very clear understanding that how precisely these international, the global countries in different geographies, how precisely they have done it. Especially the Nordic ones, because for them, these Norway, Sweden, Finland, this kind of countries, for them, of course, this freight, they have completely gone in for a kind of non-fossil fuel based mobility, not precisely electric, but others also. So one ought to be taking lessons from them, that how precisely they have gone ahead with. And you will see that in all these countries, it is not the center which has played the key role, nowhere. It is always a prefecture, say in Japan, or maybe a cantons, maybe the smaller little units, that has gone in to play a big role, and that has acted as a game changer. Maybe I think that we need to have more learning, more understanding precisely, and getting ourselves linked to them, that how exactly they have carried out, not only as a textbook information, number one. Number two, if it can be done, say in India, if that comes up, as I mentioned in the initial my outpouring, that if it can be done, say in Surat, that is one of the most polluted cities, 41 of the 14 most polluted cities, and similarly, if it can be done at Bangalore, then probably that will start doing that spin. That will be needed. So to say three things, that capacity is definitely required in a big way. Number two, Niti Aayog is taking its initiatives. Number three, it needs still clearer understanding of how precisely these international players, how precisely they have done it. Because these days, the best part which I find is there is no shame in acknowledging your ignorance. You can always say, I don't know. You can learn it from others. How come? I mean, after all, they are there to pull you over. So naturally, those things can be there. And as Ms. Motwani rightly said, that OEMs, these private players, they have a still bigger role to play. You know, because I am representing a government that has a firm belief that we have to govern the least. We have decided that let private industries be on the forefront, let them take the country forward. And in that case, for them also, they have to see it, that how precisely it can be taken forward. Because, for instance, if say one of the OEMs, say Tata, for example, if they take it a call, or maybe Mahindra, for example, because they are into the lower vehicle segments, smaller vehicle segments. So if they take it a call that, okay, let's completely transform a particular city. Okay, with their interventions, they are doing it. It's not that it is not in Kerala, in Kochi, they are making interventions. So if those initiatives could come up and have a visible impact, that would be the game changer. Yes, Partha.
Absolutely, I completely agree. I mean, the fact is that I have a lot of hopes on the automobile industry. I do not know why. Maybe because they were at one point of time one of the front movers in capacity building when it comes to driver training, etc. But this is a different animal altogether, right? Urban freight is so varied and so vast that we will probably require different segregated institutions to be created in order to build those capacities at different levels. Sharif, do we have questions from the audience? Is there a mechanism for that, and can we take them?
Yes, Partha, we have one question from Ms. Isha Kulkarni. So I'll read it out for the benefit of the speaker. So this is directed to Ms. Motwani. Regarding financing of freight EVs, what according to you would be the most effective measures to convince NBFCs and banks to give lower cost loans?
Very good question.
Yes, thanks for this. I think there are two ways of doing this. One is that we have been requesting Finance Ministry and Niti Aayog to help in considering electric vehicles under priority sector lending, so that the nationalized banks, like they are financing tractors, which is under priority sector lending, would focus and be required to finance electric vehicles. So I think that would really help to bring more momentum from the nationalized bank sector to provide electric vehicle financing. Today, what is happening is that because electric vehicles are a very small percentage of automobile market, um, you know, uh, let's say I don't want to say it's not important, but it's too insignificant for people to really focus today. But it is the future, so we have to find ways to get people to focus on it. So one is to get priority sector lending tag for electric vehicles, so that nationalized banks will be required to consider for financing it. Now, when it comes to the private banks and NBFCs, the issue is exactly what I said earlier, is that because electric vehicles are only 1 or 2, 3% of the market, it's not meaningful for them to really focus on it. So when we approach them as OEMs or as private companies, they have many questions. I don't know, what about battery life? What about resale value? So they have, these, I don't want to use the word prejudice, but these queries, or unaddressed queries, because there's not enough visibility or enough population, enough history to know what will be the resale value. So in such situations, we end up saying that, why don't you do something? We'll give you a delinquency fund, etc., etc. But still, many banks are not coming forward. There is just a lot of inertia. I'm sure that once the number of electric vehicles increases, they will come forward. Like even in ICE vehicles, I think, Partho, you would know that, when banks were not doing data financing, NBFCs were financing electric normal ICE vehicles. But once banks came into the picture aggressively, it changed everything. The rates came down, finance became available. And instead of manufacturers giving incentive to financiers started giving incentive to manufacturers and dealers to provide them a space in the counters. So because the population is less, the percentage of business of electric vehicles is less, there is inertia on the part of banks and NBFCs. So we need some support. So private sector lending will really help. Another thing that could help is, certain large green funds, can be asked to securitize EV loans, so that there is a, a line of fund made available through a World Bank or any such large scale fund to the private banks or NBFCs, specifically for electric vehicles. So there is, some push, on the supply side to them, and some amount of securitization. Some such institutional measures can also help. Manufacturers can also give delinquency fund in the beginning to provide a cushion to the financiers. But these two things will, I think, help. For the private banks and NBFCs, a securitized large fund from a global or a large private sector bank dedicated for EVs, and to get nationalized banks to come and finance EVs to make it priority sector lending. I think this will help. Once we are at 10% and plus, I think it will automatically, market forces will take over, and the momentum will build itself. It's just for the next 2-3 years, this support is required.
Yeah, I think this is a very good question, and thank you, Ms. Motwani, for taking this and explaining it so beautifully, because the commercial vehicle sector has always faced this challenge. I mean, for a very, very long time. If it is for individual buyer, I think the problem is far lesser. But the moment it is for commercial use, if somebody is buying for a fleet, I think the banking sector support has been always very lackluster, and that's why the NBFCs came into being. Do we have any more questions, Sharif?
We don't have the question yet. I'll also request the participants if they can raise their hand, and we can reach out to them and allow them to speak as well. But if you permit, Partha, I have one small, suggestion or a query. So we have been talking about, Agarwal sir also mentioned about intermodality. And the way we have been seeing in the past 1.5 years about the role of railways and how the need is to improve the terminals and especially at the city level. So this particular question is to Sinha sir, and since he is also a railway personnel, I'll direct this question to him. What is his view in looking at urban freight and railways in a joint, combined manner? And where are the opportunities there as well?
Yes, Sharif, that could be taken forward. That's a very innovative idea that you are coming out with. But to start with, at least in the railway premises, which is a fairly large area, mostly underutilized or maybe just cluttered up by old vehicles, there one could think of laying down the charging infrastructure in a big way. That is one thing that could start with. But yes, you rightly said that in the urban freight movement, they could be doing a big role. And in that, of course, railways, it is not only between railways and the others, it is also with the freight forwarders who are in between. They have to be also taken into board that how exactly the entire movement from railways to the warehouses and then onwards, how the entire line, the entire pipeline can be on a green movement. That is very important. Number two, I would tell you, Sharif, you can try it. Maybe it succeeds. Most of the e-commerce kind of people, when suppose I am booking something, say I am asking for some grocery items, I should have a choice whether I want a green delivery. Suppose if I tick it, I say, yeah, that means that it could be, say, delayed by 2 or 3 hours, maybe 4 hours, that is all. So that much, if that, within that much, because there is no one is in tearing hurry that you want the delivery to be right now itself. So if it is 3-4 hours of delay, but if the delivery is coming green, then whether how exactly this is being tied up is another part. The best is that you are making so many people aware that there is an option. And let me tell you, I kind of assure you that most of these younger people, they will definitely go in for this green delivery because they are the ones who are 100% aware that what exactly it means, what implications are there for. Maybe older one says that no, even if I want even a pack of, if in a sack of potato should be delivered right now itself. That is another approach. But majority of them, the youngsters especially, they will go in for that green delivery. So that option should be open to them so that that idea starts coming into it. Yes. Similarly, one more thing I could say, Sharif. In many countries, one day I had just an interest that how exactly different countries go in for a kind of packaging their EVs, especially these small little units, how precisely the number plates are, what exactly the color combination is. And I realized that there's so much of ingenuity, there's so much of new thinking that they try to put into it to make it glamorous, to make it attractive, to make it like an awareness campaign, even in a small little thing like a number plate or like the color of the vehicle or like a couple of stickers around. I was looking at China. Every state, every province of them, they have come out with a strange combination of how exactly the number plate and the sticker should look like on their EVs. That's just, you should just see that on such a small thing, they put in so much of creativity just to attract the population, the people. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question in the question and answer section, and it is from Promit Mukherjee. He asks, how can OEMs and financing bodies collaborate to help better assess the battery life, resale value, etc., to develop a more tailored financial tools? Somebody wants to take this question?
I can give a couple of thoughts. So I think that, as I said, it's some of this is evolution, right? As more vehicle population builds, it's a new technology. The more data points will be available so that the resale value can be shown through data points rather than, assurances or expectations. Already with lithium-ion batteries, being used on all the FAME-approved EVs, with the battery life itself being 3 years, and under FAME, each manufacturer has to give a warranty for 3 years for the vehicle and the battery both. So for the entire period of the loan, vehicle and battery are both under warranty by the manufacturer. So there is no concern on vehicle going off-road or resale value due to the loan life being longer than the battery life or the vehicle life. Now your loan life is protected by warranty by manufacturer as well as by the lithium-ion battery. So this is one thing. The second thing I think that can be quite useful is, as I mentioned earlier, some kind of a delinquency fund. So the manufacturers can contribute, the financial can contribute to a certain amount of fund, expecting maybe a little bit higher delinquency in the beginning because it's a new technology. And then that way their returns are protected. At the end of the entire portfolio, they can review. If the funds are not used, then they can be returned back to the concerned manufacturer or to the dealer or to the financial, whoever has put that money. But there's a floating fund available to take care of any additional losses due to poor resale value. That's a very practical solution. I think the third thing that can be done is to work on credit shield products, right? So we are talking to these insurance companies and saying that, look, you develop interesting products for us where we can make it compulsory for the customers to buy the credit shield product as well, so that due to disability or illness or any other such reasons, if the vehicle is not in use, then there is a guaranteed repayment by the insurer to the financier. So you're reducing again some amount of losses that is possible because you're making it compulsory for the customer to buy credit shield. The fourth thing, of course, we are working with these companies who are providing the GPS solutions. So each vehicle can be tracked, its location can be tracked. There can be remote immobilization. There can be geofencing, so that the financier will have more visibility on where the asset is moving, and can always track the asset. So by tracking the asset, by adding credit shield as a solution to reduce the losses through a delinquency fund in case of, an eventual resale. And lastly, through, ensuring that you're working only and financing FAME of 2 product only, which is having 3-year warranty. Financials can certainly, ensure that they have attractive returns and very little losses. And the last thing I want to say here is, because there is less competition today in EV financing, because other biggies have not yet jumped in. Large NBFCs and banks are not yet financing EV seriously, whether it's ICICI Bank or Shriram, Sundaram. I can name, the top NBFCs are not looking at EVs. It's a great opportunity for other players like small finance banks who understand inclusivity, who understand livelihoods. It's a great opportunity for smaller NBFCs because the IRRs are like 28, 29, 30%. Whereas IRRs on normal ICE vehicle financing today are 16, 17, 18%. So there is already a huge delta available. Because there is less competition, you are getting higher returns. So according to me, EV financing can actually be very profitable for those who are, willing to kind of look little bit, think out of the box, and take a plunge, and look at innovation. So I think small finance banks, small NBFCs, some of the more aggressive private banks, they can make good amount of return if they finance EVs. This is my personal opinion. Thank you.
Partho, there could be
Yes.
another way of looking at it also.
Sure.
There are 4 players. I identify 4 players. One is OEM, so Ms. Motwani is there. Number 2 is the ULB, let's call it the semi-government kind of stuff. Third is the actual operator, and fourth is the financer. You just allow them to sit together. They will come out with their own innovative model, and you will see that how exactly it will start working. And there could be a number of combinations. It could run on an OPEX model. It could be on the books of the ULBs, and still it can run. So then you will see that precisely everything will start falling down. The NBFC, the high interest rate, all the things will start coming down. And the net result that we will have is that creation of that urban mobility, that freight mobility on sustainable basis. So these 4 players have to be brought together, and they are the ones who have to think it through.
This is very good, sir. This is pretty innovative. Yeah, no, in fact, I would, if you allow me, sir, I would like to add the fifth component. That will be either Shakti or Terry as the neutral body to be sitting there as a mediator, which can be a very interesting thing.
And Partha, I'd like to add another institution,
Sure.
shippers. I think shippers, so then sir talked about, personal delivery, when you're getting delivery for your groceries, etc. But I think there's a huge amount of industries that are moving freight around, right?
Absolutely.
And that could also be an important area to kind of intervene and get them on the table as well.
Absolutely. So 6 ho gaya hai, sir. But I think that's good. More the merrier. Sharif, I think this is fantastic. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I want to thank each one of you. We are at the end of the hour. Thank you very much for your suggestions, for your points. I really enjoyed moderating this session and listening to all of your points. And last I would like to say is thank you very much, because you think that this is a very important sector to contribute to look at it as we grow in our development curve. This becomes very, very essential. Thank you very much. Have a great day and rest of the week.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Partha. Thank you so much. I also encourage you all to visit the website for which we gathered today. So that will be good. And also share your feedback on how to improve it further and how to make it more productive. I would like to thank all the participants, the speakers in the inaugural, as well as the panelists for sparing time and sharing their thoughts. Partha, indeed, it has been a very informative session and very different one as well. So thanks for moderating this session, Partha. And we look forward to more collaboration and cooperation from all the participants who are present and who would see this video on YouTube perhaps later. So yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.